My residency, I learned we call them old school techniques. We papoose kids. We did hand over mouth in my residency. That was back in late 90s. But all of us that kind of went that direct, learned those techniques, none of us really, that I know personally, practice that way anymore. I mean, to me, I look at it as trauma, and trauma affects us psychologically, and the child feels like they have no control over the situation. There's voice control, intimidation. I learned all those techniques, and I think that's why we have a lot of really nervous patients as adults today. I think that having, my experience in dental school with kids, it's different than permanent teeth, and the management's different than adults.
A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, listeners, to A Tale of Two Hygienists podcast. We are your hosts, David Torres, and my amazing partner in crime, co-host,
Jessica Atkinson. I'm wondering what kind of crime we're going to commit. Hopefully nice crime.
I don't know, but it's just a saying that I just kind of thought about, and I thought of you. So that's
maybe trying to get fluoride back in the water where it's been banned. That could be the crime.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, you heard it here first. And today we're going to be talking in this episode of 525 to what I consider one of the best doctors that have an amazing beard, Dr. Johnson. Just want to tell us a little bit more about that?
I would love to. So you guys can't see Dr. David Johnson, but he does have a pretty epic beard. He has entered his Santa Claus era. And I have known him for, we just talked about this, over 20 years, probably. We're going to say around 20. We're not going to date each other too much. But when we were talking, I said, let's do an interactive bio. So I had the blessed opportunity to work for Dr. David Johnson as a pediatric dental assistant. And this was when I was deciding to become a dental hygienist. And he was pivotal, integral, a big part of my decision to make dentistry part of my professional life through the long haul. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I want him to tell us a little bit about where he went to school, a few of his accolades, which he has some. This is not a place to be humble. So tell a little bit about your professional bio, and then I'll like jump in with, how on days we had cancellations, he would teach me some self-defense. So watch out, everybody. I'm real good.
Well, I'm honored to be here. I have the utmost respect for hygienists, and working with hygienists in the current place that I work, you guys to me are like specialists, just like any other specialist.
Amen. Rub people on the back.
Yeah. I cannot scale off a calculus spur to save my life. So, so thankful for hygienists, but I'm honored to be here. Okay. So I guess you want undergrad, dental school?
Yeah. I want maybe the time when you were like a teenager and you woke up in the middle of the night and you're like, dentistry, this is my life.
Okay.
We all that.
Well, to be honest, I grew up in Oregon, mostly
and not the pretty part.
No, the east side in the desert, high desert. Family, my grandfather started a ranch farm. I kind of grew up working on the farm. I had no interest in anything except continuing on in that. I kind of wanted to be a rancher, raise cattle and stuff like that. And then I got into high school, and I'm like, I got to get out of this town, small town of 1,200 people. Town is called Vail, and it's probably about an hour and 20 minutes from Boise, Idaho. So we're really far on the east side. So went to school. I did my undergrad down in Utah. My older brother was down there at BYU. And when I first started, I was doing a lot of research in microbiology, immunology, and I wanted to get a PhD and teach in research. And I realized, it's pretty tough to make a decent living. I mean, you can do okay. I guess it depends where you're at. And so I was going to go into medicine. Dentistry was not on my radar. I had no interest in working with teeth. So, signed up to take the MCAT. And then about, a few weeks before the MCAT, I decided I don't want their hours. I don't want to work 60 to 80 hours a week. And then the thought just came in, what about dentistry? So I just remember for the dental exam, I bought a $24 book at the college bookstore, and I studied for like 2 weeks, and I did pretty well on it, and got into several schools, and especially the one I wanted to go to, which was Oregon Health Sciences, because I was from Oregon, so I would get in-state tuition. And yeah, so I wasn't planning on specializing. I was just going to be a family dentist, which is great. Love GPs and what they do. And then about 2 weeks, my fourth year, 2 weeks before the deadline to apply to pediatrics, I decided I'm going to be a pediatric dentist. Before that, I really didn't want to, I wasn't on my radar, and I wasn't like had a great GPA, but I wasn't in the top 10 at Oregon. I wasn't close to the top 10, but because I wasn't planning on specializing, you kind of have to gun for those top 10%. So anyway, I applied. It kind of all worked out for me. I guess I was pretty lucky. Interviewed at some residencies, and I interviewed at University of Nebraska Medical Center, which was the second pediatric dental residency in the U.S. that was started.
That's a great placement.
Yeah, at the time, I loved the director, and so when I did match, you guys know what match is, right?
Yeah. For those that may not be familiar, tell us a little bit about what match looks like.
Yeah, so match is when you have the match, any residency, medical or dental, you place where you interview, you rank your schools, and then the schools or the hospitals will rank the applicants. And so if a place has 3 positions open and you place it as your number 1 and you're in their top 3, you'll go there. Anyway, so I got into University of Nebraska Medical Center. Interestingly, I almost, after a year, was going to go to a med school. My director was going to help me because I loved anesthesia. We had to do a rotation through anesthesia, and kind of glad I didn't. But finished there. My wife and I didn't know where we wanted to practice. She wanted to go to California. I wanted to go to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we ended up in Utah as a fallback plan. And I practiced. Yeah, it's in the middle. And it's great. It's grown. It's kind of nuts now, and had my own practice for 23 years, and group bought my practice. I worked for them for a year, and now I'm working on the Wind River Reservation. So that's it in a nutshell.
So, question. Is your wife a dentist too? Did you guys meet in school?
No, we met in undergrad, but she has a degree in social work, not a dentist. Yeah.
Which, I mean, has a part in dentistry, a little bit of social work for you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A little bit of those social aspects for sure. I'm curious about when you were at OSHU, in your beginning time of becoming a dentist, how much interaction did you actually have with the pediatric population?
So, I mean, the first 2 years, not much. I mean, but the second and third year, half a day a week, we would work with pediatric patients. So our whole class, because every school is different. So some schools would have 2-week rotation, like at University of Nebraska in Lincoln, the students will rotate on a rotation through pediatric dentistry for 2 weeks. We had it every week for the third and fourth year for a half a day. And so I kind of like it that way because, every week you're dealing with kids. And my favorite thing about pediatric dentistry, I'm not going to lie, the dentistry is pretty easy. What we do. I mean, you ask any pediatric dentist, you can put a crown on a tooth in like 3 minutes. But it's the management. And I love the management and helping kids work through these things. So when they're adults, they're not terrified to be, to go to the dentist, because the dentist kind of sucks. I'm not going to lie, So that's really the main reason why I went in pediatric dentistry. I want to say the management, the psychology of it. I love that aspect of it.
But did you knew that this was like a calling for you, or you just kind of like you had a passion about being able to help with the trauma in dentistry?
So as far as the management, it's kind of something that I developed not only in dental school, I started because, when you have a whole class working on kids and this kiddo's losing it, crying over here, it's like, you can approach it in a way that the child thinks they're in control, which gives them some comfort. And you can, I'm big on positive affirmations. I have little tricks I've learned over the years. I think I kind of just, maybe it was my, personality, but I was able to learn things as I continued practicing. So passion definitely now when it began, probably a little bit.
I think you do have a little natural knack for it. I also think that the management of the pediatric patient has a wide range of potential applications, meaning when I was your dental assistant, we never strapped a kid to a board. I never saw a kid being papoosed. I never saw a situation where we took those kind of approaches. So give me a little bit of perspective on, as a dental student in both residence, your specialized schooling and before, what was appropriate or accepted, and then how that evolved into what you prefer?
Yeah. So dental school, I mean, it's a little different. We did have pediatric dentists that would come in, but it wasn't there's something to be said for environment. And like when Jess worked with me, basically our staff was so well trained that you guys basically managed the kids before I even got in the room. They're in the chair, they're comfortable, we put nitrous on, they're watching a show, listening to, the show. So dental school, we didn't have that. We never held kids down in dental school. My residency, I learned we call them old school techniques. We papoosed kids. We did hand over mouth in my residency. That was back in late 90s. But all of us that kind of went that direct, learned those techniques, none of us really, that I know personally, practice that way anymore.
I was going to say, was there ever a positive experience where like that worked really well, putting that hand over the mouth? That was a good thing. Glad we did that.
No, absolutely not. It's to me, I look at it as trauma, and trauma affects us psychologically, and the child feels like they have no control over the situation. There's voice control, intimidation. I learned all those techniques, and I think that's why we have a lot of really nervous patients as adults today. And, it's just not a good way to practice. And I'll give credit. I think, I taught at Primary Children's, which is Utah's, level 1 trauma center for kids. I taught there for 10 years. The residents, the new director is fantastic. He's been there probably, 12, 14 years now. And they don't papoose kids. We do have now, compared to when I was a resident, there's more options. So obviously, traditionally you would have, nitrous oxide, right? Kind of the first. And then you had an oral sedation beyond that. And then you would have the operating room. Now there's an in-between. So you still have, obviously I use nitrous all the time. I never really found oral sedation work very well. Sometimes if you give some Valium at the right dose with nitrous, it works pretty well.
The cocktail, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, you can do, liquid Valium, but normally the kitty cocktail is your like chlorohydrate, visceral, they're stronger sedatives. So they're out more. I just found that the kids were crying the whole time anyway. So I never use that in private practice. I did in my residency. But now we have in-office IV sedations with in-office intubation and then the operating room. So those kids that are like 8 or 9 that have their first molars are kind of need a lot of work and they're stressed out, I would bring in a nurse anesthetist, and Jess probably remembers that. And, we would get the work done. It's definitely safer now because the nurse anesthetist or anesthesiologist, depends where you're at. The one I used towards the end of my private practice days, he had a full anesthesia machine, and he would he would use sevoflurane, put the kids out when the parents are there. And then after the kids are asleep, parents would go out in the waiting room. He'd put an ID in, he'd intubate. So it was more of an like a surgical suite setting.
A little less of those side effects like ketamine. Ketamine kind of wigged out.
Yeah, it did. And less issues with respiration and airways closing off and stuff like that. So pediatric dentistry has improved a lot, especially in the management side, in my opinion. I mean, there's obviously still risks doing that. There's risks if you go to the operating room. I mean, there's risks if you block a patient just with local. But I think the in-office sedation is a nice in-between. So parents don't have to pay a $5,000 operating bill, and oral sedation or Valium and nitrous or nitrous just doesn't work.
So, Dr. J, you mentioned obviously managing the kids, right?
Yeah.
What about the parents? What are some of those communication techniques that you have where you have that one parent that is just hovering over your shoulder, asking you a bunch of questions, including how long you've been doing this, all that stuff? How do you manage those?
And to be fair, you looked really young 20 years ago.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this?
Yeah, it's, I'll be honest. You're not just managing the kid, you are managing the parents. Yeah. And when I trained, we didn't let parents back. That was kind of the old school approach. But I was the type that, listen, if a kiddo starts to lose it, I want the parent in the room to know, we're not hurting the child, right?
Right.
And you do get that sixth sense over time. It's like, this is going to be a struggle. So before you even start, or you just put the topical on and the 5-year-old or 6-year-old. Normally, actually, the easiest age to work on is about 4 to 5. Honestly, in my opinion.
I have only been bitten by an 8-year-old.
Yeah. It's the older, preteen, adolescent kids. They're the ones that have, if they've had a bad experience, you just kind of have to, because you're, like I said, you're managing two people, the kiddo and the parent. And if it's done right, you just talk to the parent as you're doing. I explain things in a non-threatening way to the kids, which helps. And
what are some of your favorite phraseologies for that?
Yeah. So, obviously the topical, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to brush your teeth. Now this is some special toothpaste. It's going to start to feel really weird. And then I lie a lot. It's easier to lie than, and I say, okay, now once, it starts to get numb, I'm like, okay, I'm going to work this toothpaste in. You may feel me press just a little. And if they start to move, you can kind of see, it's like, oh, am I pushing too hard? And they'll say, yeah. And then as far as I do a lot of, show, tell, do. So I'll show the kids, I'll say, it's like going to the car wash. Here's the sprayer. I spray their hand with the high speed. This is the brush with the slow speed. And then, we clean your teeth really well. And then it's like getting a new paint on your car. And then we show them the vacuum, and I'll ask, have you seen your parents vacuum their car? This is what this is for. And so I kind of word things in a way that, to me, it doesn't sound threatening, and it's on their level. And to be honest, most of the parents they're really good, the ones I've seen, and they just kind of sit back. It's the ones that will say, oh, I already told Johnny or whoever.
You're going to get him.
Yeah, you're going to get a shot or whatever. And so now we have to backpedal and try to start, new. And normally we can numb up with, and they don't know. And in my opinion, in my career, the greatest thing for dentistry is Septicaine. I think it is the most amazing local anesthetic. Because
Philic miracle.
Yeah, because with Septicaine, honestly, any primary teeth, even extractions, I never have to block on the lowers.
Nice.
And even some permanent, premolars, class 2, I never have to block. Even some mesials of some 30, 19 and 30, I can infiltrate, and it works fantastic. So to me, Septicaine is like the greatest thing. And I remember when it came out. Well, I remember when it came out in dental school, but we couldn't use it for anyone 12 and under for the FDA. Now it's, 4 and older. So, yeah.
Good stuff. My question I have, where do you decide that this situation has now gone to gotten to a point that we're going to be recommending either an in-office sedation or a hospital experience? Where do you know when that patient's in the chair that you're like, hey, this is where we're going to draw the line? Is it how much work that needs to be done or how they're behaving? Give me a little bit of your feeling on when you need to start managing in a different atmosphere.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, kind of all the above. So, I mean, obviously the first thing, if we can't get x-rays, probably not going to happen, right? A lot of it's the age. If it's going to take more than 2 visits, then I've been surprised. Kids that are 4 and even younger, 4 visits, if it's going to take more than 2 visits, we talk about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And some parents want us to try, and we do. And it's, from what I found, first 2 visits are great. It's by that 4th visit. And it depends on when they come in. Morning appointments are better for kids in afternoon when they're tired. But yeah, if there's 50% of the primary teeth need work, we'll sedate them. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a general, I guess, mark for that.
Dr. J, what about emergencies? Like, can you think about like an emergency that it just always happens, like a chipped tooth, or what are some of the things that you've noticed that it was like, like you can always count on a Friday afternoon, this was probably going to happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know if Jess remembers, but in my career, I've been in on every holiday. Christmas, Thanksgiving.
I think I was in one or two of both.
Yeah. The bane of my practice is those stupid razor scooters falling forward and chipping the teeth. Luckily, primary teeth, if they're chipped, that's not a big deal. If they get knocked out, which is better, then we don't put them back in. It's the ones that are cracked to the nerve and we have to take it out, or it's, an avulsed incisor that we have to take out and kiddos for, and you have to extract it there and in the clinic. Those are the ones that, they're a little kind of a pain.
Odd too, because this little kid can be toothless for 2 years.
Yeah.
Guys, I have a confession. I want to say, so I have 3 kids, Dr. J. My youngest, we have this tradition where before Christmas, every Friday we watch a Christmas movie. And it just so happens, I know, right? Yeah. And it just so happens that on the Friday that it was basically Christmas Eve, I want to say like 3-4 years ago, when my youngest was a year, maybe more, maybe less. This kid thinks he's made out of rubber because he's always like bouncing around, right? So we have this projector. And so we are getting everybody to sit down and play the Christmas movie. And I was already it's like a day bed. I was already in the day bed and he was playing around with me, but I was getting distracted. As I said, I have 3 kids. So there's a lot going on. My wife is making the popcorn. My oldest is controlling the TV, and I'm trying to tame my second. And Jacob is just like bouncing around the bed, and I'm trying to catch him. But in one of those, he bounced off the bed. Now, I want you to picture me, low motion, trying to grab my kid by the back of his shirt.
Hopefully he was wearing an easy grab shirt.
It was like a onesie. And so like I'm trying to like grab him. And if you can just slow down and measure it, the distance between the tip of my fingers and his onesie, it was probably like 5 millimeters with a dental probe. And I missed it. And he just bounced off the bed, chipped his front tooth. My wife and I are hygienists. Do you know the emotional toll that it takes for 2 dental hygienists to find out that their kid broke their tooth, chipped their tooth, right? And of course, it happens at the worst time. So that's why I ask is what type of medical emergency or dental emergency rather happens, because it happened to me.
And those 2 teeth would like to be the first thing to catch anything. Yeah. Not your hands, but your teeth and your nose. But I think that these kinds of things happening that are pediatrics, not a lot of adults come in having chipped 8 and 9, as many as children. I would imagine. I should probably pull the numbers on that, but in my own personal experience, I have seen more children have frontal facial injuries than an adult. And maybe because it's so frequent, do you think this is one of the reasons why pediatric dentistry was a specialty? Why it was not just, okay, you got a half a Thursday in your third and fourth year with peds, you're good to go.
Yeah, I think definitely baby teeth are different. And I know that sounds weird, but like there have been changes in treatment. So when I was in my residency, when I first started practicing up until about 2014, if it was a deep decay, we would just do a pulpotomy, take out the top part of the nerve. Now, I haven't done a pulpotomy since probably 2015. Now, if there's a bombed out first molar, if the kids aren't in pain, I don't even clean out the decay. I just prep it and put a crown on it. And it's a technique called the Hall technique. And it has like a 97%, success rate, where the pulpotomy, you're probably about 75 in the ballpark of that. But I think that having, my experience in dental school with kids, it's different than permanent teeth, and the management's different than adults. Although where I work, sometimes I have to help out and see adults, and I kind of treat them like kids. I know that sounds bad, but I explain everything. Well, I mean, I explain it like kids, and I tell them, hey, I'm one of the pediatric dentists. If I talk to you like you're 5, I'm sorry. I just want to explain it. And I'll be honest, the adults really appreciate it. I'm like, you like that I've explained what I'm doing? So then they know, and they're like, yeah, absolutely. I think it gives the patients, like I said, they feel like they're in control rather than just go to the dental chair, you sit back. You have no idea what the dentist is doing. Yeah, I had to get a root canal myself not too long ago. It's a long story. I know. Hey, I'm airing my dirty laundry. But anyway, my buddy, and I know what the process is, and he had an endodontist had to do it on 15, a root canal, and I kind of knew what was going on, and I was like, oh, he's done, thank goodness, and he's just starting. And I'm like, and he's a good buddy of mine, and I know, so I'm in the profession, so he didn't really explain it, but I think patients who have no background in dentistry, I think they do appreciate that. And I think with kids, it's easy for general dentists. And again, this is no disrespect for general dentists. It's easier to work on an adult than it is on a kid in a lot of ways, not just the management, but also how to address the primary teeth. I mean, the good thing is they're all going to fall out eventually. So I guess that's one positive thing. But, those primary second molars, they'll have them till they're age 12. And so it's easier. That's what I love about hygiene. It's prevention. Hygiene is prevention. Yeah, that's what you get. And pediatric dentistry is prevention as well. And if we can prevent a lot of these issues, it's so much better for the patient. So, in my opinion.
I think that's a really good place to end this one of 2 episodes. Don't worry, we're having Dr. Johnson back because we've got a lot more to talk about. But to end on the note of prevention is key, and prevention is where the power is to really change the trajectory of not only dental experiences when they're young, but throughout the lifespan of a person is prevention. So we are so glad you came. So good to see you. And I'm excited to talk some more about pediatric dentistry and what you're doing now.
Okay. Thank you. It's been a blast. This is great.
Thank you, Dr. J. We'll see you at the next one.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. That's a wrap on today's episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists podcast. If this conversation made you feel seen, inspired, or even just a little fired up, share it with a fellow hygienist or fellow dental professional. Share it with your neighbors, your friends. Share it with everyone. That is how this community grows.
Make sure you subscribe, leave us a review, and connect with us on social media so that we can keep on going with this conversation. Remember, your career, your voice, and your story matter here. We're David
and Jessica.
And until next time,
keep learning, keep laughing, and keep showing up for yourself and for each other.
This has been a production of Endeavor Business Media, a division of Endeavor B2B.